so jealous.
Hey, what is up guys? Kevin here. Today in this video I'm going to be talking about the equipment that I'm going to be using for the 2019 snowboarding season. So we're going to be going to Niseko again, and this is going to be my 5th time, I believe, to Niseko now. And to a lot of new people who've never been to Niseko before, there's a lot of questions about renting and buying equipment. What kind of equipment should I get? And a lot of that is going to be largely more about what you want to do when you're in Niseko. But I'm going to run through my sets of equipment, approximately how much I got them for and where I got them for, and why they're going to be suitable for the trip that we're about to take. Alright, now let's start with the snowboard, which I think is essentially probably the most important equipment going to Niseko. What I have here right in front of me is a very colorful piece of board with bindings. This is the Burden custom process Flying V. This one I believe is from the 2016 season. Now in consideration of basically the snowboard lines, there's essentially three things you might want to look at, right? It's going to be an all-mountain board, it's going to be the park board, and it's going to be the powder board. And what I have in front of me here is essentially a classic true twin. This one is basically the most balanced all-mountain board, which means they're pretty good for pretty much everything. And it's typically what I would recommend any new beginners to buy first, because park boards, they're only good for parks, and if you're not good to begin with, you're not going to be going to the parks. And powder boards are a lot more advanced, and it requires different styles of riding. So for your first board, typically you want the board to be probably close to 5 to 10 centimeters, a little bit shorter than you are. So this one I think is the 165, and I'm about a 174, which gives you a really nice stable ride when you are on it. And the nice thing about a nice stable ride is when you pick up some speed and need to turn, there is going to be a lot of edge for the snow to catch, which means that you're going to be going through the snow with a lot of speed, with a lot more stability. So not very easy to fall. It is going to be a little bit more harder to initiate turns on these longer boards, but it's a little bit of something that comes with more experience. The next important part is going to be the bindings. And what I have here are typically the bindings you cannot rent when you actually go to snowboard. But bindings are actually not very expensive, so if you can find a place to get one of these, I would strongly recommend them. So what's different about this board, and let me turn this all the way around, is the way you get into them. As you can see, the bottom part of this binding is right now all tied to the back. This one, I believe, is the Flow Hybrid. So it's called the Hybrid because it has two ways of access inside the board. So when you take a look at the bindings itself, you can see that the bindings fold all the way back. But the Hybrid is a little bit different. In that the whole backside actually falls all the way back, which means that with the bindings, you don't actually have to take these two front straps out. What you can also just do is basically just loosen this up a little bit when you want to put it in. You just stick your foot right in, you lock it up, and you're done. Now the beauty of this binding, the Flow Hybrid, is when you're actually on the mountains itself and it's negative 10, 15 degrees, putting on your bindings are going to be quite tough, and considering also the amount of snow. So what I typically see as a problem for new beginners is that they spend a lot of time trying to get in and out of their snowboards, and this eliminates 90% of that problem. So I think it's some of the key essential bindings that you probably want to have when you go boarding. Now the regular one works fine. I would say that it takes a lot of hassle out of the putting your feet into the shoe process. And I got both of these back in the States. This was probably about 2 years ago. My memory's not off. I've taken this to Niseko twice already, and I'd say that they are great for probably the lower 70% of the mountains. Not so great when there's a lot of powder, so I'd say when there's at least 60 to 70 centimeters packed of powders, this board is starting to not float as well as I would want it to. But overall, a great basic setup that works anywhere. I got this entire board for approximately $500. It was on season when I purchased this, and the bindings were about $150. I got both these from Evo, Seattle. Alright, and next up we have our basic essential clothings. Now these are actually quite important too, because When you're up there on the mountains, it's going to be, I would say, probably about -10 at the base and closer to about -15 when you get on probably the second lift. And when you're probably up closer to the top of the mountain, it's going to hit somewhere between -15 and -20. So it gets really, really cold. And layerings are going to be very important because you want to have a good balance between how warm you want to be and how uncomfortable are you willing to be also in that process. What I have here are two of my essential pieces of clothing, which is my snowboard jacket and my snowboard pants. These are Burns and these are the Keen. There's nothing I would say extra special about them. The nice thing about both of these clothes is that they are zippers on the side, which you can ventilate a little bit if it does get too hot. But overall, I would usually buy my clothes making sure that they are completely waterproof because sometimes you do get soaked through some falls. You do get to sit in the snow for some time, and the snow does melt when it touches with your body heat. So you want to make sure all this is going to be waterproof. You also want to make sure that they are a little bit bigger than they need to be. And the reason why is because typically you want to do about 2 layers inside, and these 2 layers will get very uncomfortable if you are wearing outer layers that are a bit too small, right? So these are the Burns, and these are the Keens. I also have a belt that I wear because when you are up there, the pants try to fall down sometimes. And with your gloves on and everything on, it's not particularly easy for you to put your pants back up. For the inner layers, I've done a combination of a lot of things, and what I find to work the best, especially for Niseko, is going to be, these are Uniqlo Heatex. They are the warmest one that you can buy, and I would strongly recommend getting the warmest one, because the other ones, although they're fine, probably for just being in the city, it does get too cold on the mountains, and usually I find that the thinner ones don't last you the whole day. It gets very comfortable very fast with the temperature. So you want to get the Uniqlo Heattech, the hottest one, both top and bottom, okay? And you still want to be wearing your underwear underneath this. So you're wearing your underwear, your base layer, both top and bottom, and then you want to wear probably an additional layer of fleece, and this is basically just to keep your body temperature inside of you, so it doesn't leak out. And then you want another layer of fleece. This is Uniqlo also. Now, as you can see, the fleece itself is actually quite thin, but they do keep you quite warm. So this is a great compromise between how thick you want your clothes to be and how warm you want to get. For the second layer of the bottom, typically I would either wear nothing, so sometimes I would say that just the inside base layer pants are warm enough. But if I am going to be trekking probably to the top of the mountain, sometimes I would wear sweatpants inside, just to make sure that I do stay warm enough when I try to summit. Alright, now that we have the board and the cloth out of the way, we're going to go through some pretty important accessories that is going to keep you also very comfortable and warm throughout this trip. And I'm going to start first off with my snowboard boots. These are K2 Rikers. I got these in the US also from Evo. This is going to be about $150, I believe. Now, the really critical thing about your boots is that you don't want your boots that have all the shoelace to tie up, because it does get pretty uncomfortable and difficult to put on and off. So the beauty about these twist and panic is that it's very easy to tighten your shoelace. So you can also just kind of adjust them to be as tight or not tight, however you like it. And the release system makes it super easy to get it on and off, right? So again, comfort is what you're really looking at with these equipments. Now, I would say that a lot of the rental equipments in Japan typically comes with these type of laces now. But if they don't, you want to ask the shop whether you can get something like this. Okay, walking around Niseko is going to be very cold and very icy, so you're going to want some actual good boots. Now, these boots, you want to make sure that they are waterproof because snow does stack on them very, very fast. And you also want to make sure that they have the bottom that are compatible with walking on ice and snow. Because I've seen a lot of people trip on boots that I think are good enough and they're just not. Cleats are going to be also something that's very important because when you're walking on ice, essentially all the time with your regular boots for dinner, for lunch, when you go out somewhere, you're going to want these cleats. These are metal cleats, and you want them tied to the bottom of your shoe like this. And what it does is it gives you that extra grip so you don't fall when you're walking around. This you don't need to buy anywhere. You can actually just buy them at a shop in Japan, at the snowboard shops. And they're going to cost you about 3,000 yen, somewhere along that line. Okay, snowboard socks. These are a little bit different than regular socks because they are usually a little bit thicker on the bottom. And that's because your feet is going to be tied into the shoe for a very long time, so you want to make sure that they're nice, snug, and fit. And also, typically they are quite long. And these usually go either up or under your base layer of your bottom side. So it makes sure that everything is snuggled in and that no heat's going to escape. I would typically recommend for a 5-day trip that you want to bring probably at least 3 pairs of socks. But the best thing you're probably going to want to do is get 5 pairs completely because they do stink up quite a bit after every day of use, being in the boots the whole day. For gloves, the flimsy kind that you can get for $20–30 works okay. But typically, I usually would strongly recommend that you get anything with Gore-Tex on it. This is the Combi Gore-Tex. Mine has only the compartments for 3 separate hands. So my finger goes in here and 2 goes in here. So these are kept more or less for utility. Now the finger thing doesn't really matter all too much. What matters is the Gore-Tex because your hand will be in the snow quite a bit, especially if you fall. It does get extremely cold, and you want to make sure there's a lot of layering on the bottom side to make sure that when your hand is pressed against the snow, trying to climb up, trying to get yourself off the ground, that you don't feel uncomfortable with your hand in the snow. And again, waterproof, because if it's not waterproof, it can get really wet really fast. Last piece of my accessory here for this set is going to be my Pacific Northwest bag from Kickstarter. Now, this is what I usually bring every day when I go boarding. My water, my sweater, my beanies, a lot of my phone, my equipment goes in here. And the nice thing about it is it's waterproof all the way through. And when it folds, it's very small. Okay, so the size is also quite important because when you're packing all this stuff into one trip, it becomes quite a lot of equipment. Okay, facial stuff. So what I have here are 2 sets of different helmets. I got them at different times. They are quite good for very different things. This one is going to be my first set that I got again from Evo Seattle. It's going to be I believe the K2. This is a pretty standard helmet. There's really nothing overly special about it. Has a lock for the goggles in the back. Has a dial fit system sitting right here in the back, so you can make sure that it's tight when you're wearing them. Nice and warm. I would say that these are quite great value for money. And this is the Uvex Tomahawk goggles that I got these in Japan. And again, nothing particularly special about it. But one thing that I do want you to notice is going to be the tint of the goggles. So for most of my equipments that I bring to Niseko, especially for goggles, I'm going to make sure they're all going to have either a yellow or orange tint because they work better when there's low light condition. And for Niseko, it's going to be mostly low light condition, especially when you go up all the way closer to the top. So these ones are great. Nothing particularly special about them, but they are just great value for money. This one was, I think, $50, and this one was about $40. And I still take them on every other trips, just because they're great, they're easy to put on, they work really well. There's nothing to complain about them, just great value for money. They do require that you base layer your face a little bit compared to my other goggles right here. So what I have here is the Yama Plus, and this is your head base layer. You can put this entirely over your face. It has a little area for you to pull and breathe a little bit if you need to breathe. And again, they keep the heat inside of you while you're boarding, so you don't lose a lot of that heat while you're on the mountain. Another set that I have, and this one is not a full head one, this is going to be half face one, is the Dragon face piece. So this part goes into your ear, you tie all this up in the back. This gets tied into your snowboard jacket, and they're just a great piece to cover your mouth when you're snowboarding. Now, what I have right here is going to be something that's going to be a little bit special. This is not going to be easy to find. It's the Ruroc integrated helmet. This is the limited edition one. So as you can see, it's chrome. The regular ones usually comes in more basic colors and comes in other colors too, but most of them are going to be either black, white, little bit tint on the side, but typically it's just all the base color. This is the chrome one. Now they're called integrated mask because the mouthpiece here comes out as separate pieces, but can be put back together, and also the goggles. So when everything is put completely together, it becomes one whole helmet system that works together really well. And I would say that probably one most important thing that I really like about this is the fact that the goggles have a removable lens. So depending on the lighting condition, you can actually just change the lens pretty much just on the fly. And I do carry my packs of lens typically when I do go boarding, depending on the lighting condition. Because you leave sometime in the morning and weather changes a lot during the day, so you kind of want to adjust your visibility based on the weather. This goes back on. It does have also the inside space for the integrated shockwave Bluetooth system, but I don't typically use them because I don't really have access to my phone when I go boarding, so I just use it as it is. Alright, so the way this works is you put this over your head, put the mouthpiece over the system, locks in like this, and the helmet goes over it. Integrated system. Now, the pros about this is actually when you're on the mountain, apart from looking extremely cool when you're snowboarding, it does block a lot of the wind and the snow that gets into your face when you're going with a lot of speed. There is a little chamfer right here, which does let in a little bit of air and snow while you're breathing, but it's going to be a lot less compared to flimsy mouthpiece or flimsy facial mask like this. And also the nice thing about the locking of the goggles into the headpiece system is that it doesn't fog up very often. And what I really like about this is the air that comes out of your mouth actually gets pushed out to the side and it gets released from the top. So when the hot air doesn't stay in your face system for a very long time, you are going to fog a lot less, essentially. Alright, last but not least, there's going to be two things which you're also going to need to put all the stuff I just mentioned together. First of them is going to be the essential snowboard bags. You can't just bring your snowboard onto an airplane without a bag. That's not going to work. So just any regular bag would I think work. This one here I got from the States from Vlog02. This one was about, I think it was about 90 bucks. Works pretty well, but you have to get your own little lock piece right here. Which can be annoying sometimes because I don't know where they are, or I have to look for a lock when I'm about to leave. But apart from that, the board goes into the middle, your shoe goes outside, and most of your snowboard equipment, like your jacket and your cloth, wants to go into the bag too, because you want to sort of fold all that cloth around the edge of the board so that it does have some shock absorbing capability. And just last quick tip is that every time you go to Japan, you also want to carry a little bit of these, a little bit of stocks of these into your bag. So these are hot hands. They're just hot bags that gets warm when you shake them up. It's nice to have when you're on the mountain. Sometimes it does get really cold and you want to have some little bit of heat inside your body. And also they're just nice when you're walking around Japan in general. Alright, so that's going to be the quick run through of the equipments that I would recommend you maybe try to look at when you are going snowboarding. I'm going to list down the actual equipment's name and link and description and the price down in the description in the box. If you find this useful, click like and subscribe, and I'll see you in your next video.